Hello, my name is Kaylin. For 7 years, I dedicated myself to the quiet task of paying off my parents' house, envisioning it as a future gift for all of us. Yet, on the day of my sister's wedding, it was presented, adorned with a ribbon and accompanied by applause, to her husband. Then, as if nothing had transpired, they attempted to take residence in my vacation home. Upon my refusal, they decided to involve the authorities. In that instant, it dawned on me that there are times when those who brought you into this world may only acknowledge your presence when you serve a purpose. As we prepare to embark on this journey, I invite you to share the time and place from which you are tuning in. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I immersed myself in each and every one. What you are about to hear unfolds the story of how silent daughters find their voices and break free from the shadows. The gravel crunched beneath our shoes as Merrick and I emerged from the car, our feet meeting the warm soil of the vineyard. As late September settled over Asheville, a palpable stillness enveloped the surroundings, as if the very essence of nature was preparing for a conclusion. Or commence. Today left me uncertain about what truly applied. Merrick smoothed his blazer and slipped his hand into the inside pocket. I observed him tapping the envelope twice. Consistently. $10,000. That was our choice for Callista and Griffin's wedding gift. That, along with almost a third of the entire expense of this entire arrangement. The dream wedding of my younger sister, set against the stunning backdrop of the Blue Ridge Mountains, came with a hefty price tag. Yet, Merrick's investment firm had achieved an unprecedented quarter. I had just secured a long-term consulting client. It was within our means. Ultimately, Callista stood as my sole sibling. As we approached the grand archway, anticipation filled the air. The ivy wound its way around the stone columns, as if it had claimed this place as its own for ages untold. Twinkling lights danced among the rows of the vineyard. All appeared to be in flawless harmony. Exceedingly flawless. My parents stood by the welcome table, radiating warmth and pride like figures of nobility. Vera, my mother, busied herself with Dad's boutonniere, as he murmured softly and offered a half-smile. I observed them, absorbing every detail. They gazed. More youthful. Brighter. Radiant, in a way. I couldn't remember them looking this joyful at my wedding. They'd smiled back then, sure. Wished Merrick and I a joyful journey ahead. Yet, they remained devoid of any glow. This is not the way. I whispered to myself, urging the thoughts to remain unspoken. Merrick gave my hand a little squeeze. Are you all right? I assured him I was fine, my gaze avoiding his, a silent story unfolding between us. A woman holding a clipboard guided us toward the seating chart. As my finger glided along the printed names etched on the glass panel, I finally discovered it. Once upon a time, there was a figure known as Kaylin Rosamond. Once upon a time, there was a character named Kaylin. With an eye. I blinked, momentarily taken aback. Almost there, I reassured myself. Yet, as we approached the table, it became clear that it was far from being within reach. Table 9 in the distant shadows, near the bar. There was an absence of family, replaced instead by colleagues from Griffin's tech startup and a few unfamiliar friends. In that moment, uncertainty gripped me. Merrick leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper, "Should I switch cards?" I shook my head, a smile tugging at my lips despite the turmoil within. No, it's perfectly all right. Today belongs to her. As we settled into our seats, my eyes drifted toward the head table. My parents had taken their places, right at the forefront, nestled between Callista and Griffin. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor echoed softly as I drew it out. Yet, not one gaze was shifted. Not even my mother's. The evening unfolded as the room filled with joyous toasts and hearty laughter. Glasses ebbed and flowed. The wine flowed freely, filling the glasses to the brim. I chose to refuse. Each time a glass was clinked and the words, "To the happy couple," echoed through the air, a knot tightened in my stomach. Suddenly, the sharp screech of microphone feedback silenced the conversation. My mom rose to her feet, smoothed out her dress, and gently tapped the glass. If we could have everyone's attention. People quieted instantly. Father stood up next to her. We wish to express our heartfelt gratitude to all who may hear this, in honor of our cherished daughter's new journey. A silence enveloped the scene. My heart leaped in my chest. Were they discussing my presence? I surveyed my surroundings. Then, they turned back to face them. Observing Callista evolve into the remarkable woman she is today, Dad continued, has been among the most profound joys of our lives. A gradual pulse began to resonate in my temples. With a voice quivering with emotion, Mom shared how she has filled our family with an abundance of light, laughter, and love. At a nearby table, a soft whisper floated through the air, filled with admiration, awe. With determination, she pressed on, her hand diving into the depths of her clutch. Our intention was to provide her and Griffin with a meaningful gift to embark on this journey together. The envelope caught my eye before I fully grasped its significance. Mom declared with pride that we were giving them the house. The place where our family gathers. It belongs to them now. Breathless whispers and enthusiastic clapping. The sound of applause filled the air, accompanied by joyous cheers and the soft echoes of emotional sniffles. And what about me? I remained completely still. What about the house? What about the house? The property for which I had been making mortgage payments for 7 years. Silently. Following the reduction of Dad's hours. As time went on, Mom's arthritis became more severe. The dwelling that continued to bear my name linked to the escrow account. The coverage. The restoration efforts. Silence enveloped the moment, leaving no room for foreboding. Silence enveloped the space. I appreciate the offer, but I must decline. Simply, bestowed upon another. As if I were invisible. Callista erupted in tears, enveloping our parents in a tight embrace. Griffin beamed as if he had just struck gold. Perhaps he had. I contorted my lips into a semblance of a smile. My fingers pressed into the fabric of the napkin concealed beneath the table. Merrick remained silent, his hand resting gently on my knee. I'm all right, I murmured gently. Refrain from doing that. Yet, I found myself not in that place. The remainder of the dinner unfolded in a haze. I left my meal untouched. I simply observed them. Callista radiated joy, while Mom wiped away tears, a testament to her pride. Dad chuckled, seemingly unfazed by the fact that he had chosen a golf trip over attending my college graduation. As dessert arrived, I found myself completely satisfied. I need air, I said to Merrick, leaning away from the table. He rose to his feet, yet I gestured for him to stay back. Only 5 minutes. I strolled along the gravel path, distancing myself from the main tent. Beyond the lines of suspended lanterns. Beyond the photo booth. As they approached the overlook, the photographers were busy setting up for another round of captivating shots. I paused, concealed by the hedge, just as they were about to catch sight of me. Callista and Griffin stood together on the porch of the house, a moment frozen in time. The place I call home. The photographer positioned them with the precision of a heartwarming commercial. All right, now let's keep the key held together. In unison, they shifted their gaze toward the lens, capturing the moment. Griffin reached into his pocket and pulled something out. My breath was momentarily suspended. They raised the brass house key as if it were a prized trophy. As if it represented a story of heritage. As if I had never been a part of this world. Silence enveloped the car as we made our way home, not a single word escaping my lips. Merrick's eyes flickered toward me, as if he anticipated an inevitable flood of emotions to spill forth. For the cries that pierced the silence. She wept. The eruption that, had I been a different woman, could have occurred in that very moment. Yet, there I remained, rigid and unmoving, arms crossed tightly, as the tree-lined road slipped away in a hazy rush outside the window. As we entered the garage of our apartment, I stepped out quietly, made my way inside, and set my shoes down in an orderly fashion by the door. In the stillness of the apartment, the fridge emitted a soft hum, the sole sound breaking the silence. I made my way to the bedroom, removed the dress with care, hung it up thoughtfully, and then settled onto the edge of the bed. Merrick lingered in the threshold, a figure caught between the known and the unknown. "Are you open to discussing it?" I gently shook my head, a silent response to the unfolding scene. "I'm doing well." He paused in silence for a moment. "Kaylin, I should have anticipated it," I interjected, interrupting him. For within me, I truly had. Perhaps it's not the key, nor the speech. Yet, I had sensed it growing for years, the subtle dismissals, the way I faded into the background amidst my own family. I was taken aback by the unexpected combination of a slap followed by applause. The following week unfolded in an unusual fog of uncertainty. I navigated the routine, engaging in client calls, analyzing spreadsheets, and reviewing cases. Yet, my thoughts seemed to drift elsewhere. Whenever the topic of weddings or family came up, it felt as though a fork was scraping against a plate in my mind. At last, Wednesday came and with it, the long-awaited arrival. A delicate pale pink envelope nestled among the bills and a grocery coupon flyer. Merrick entered the room, a sense of purpose in his stride, and casually flung the item onto the counter. It resembles a note of gratitude. I gazed intently at the flowing script. Merrick Davis alongside a guest. I slowly opened it, anticipation building within me. Within lay a card adorned with shimmering gold foil lettering. "We are truly grateful for your presence on our special day." And a brief note, written in Callista's characteristic cheerful script. "Your generous gift has truly added to the magic of our wedding, and we are incredibly grateful for your support. Your kindness will forever be etched in our memories. In the embrace of affection, Callista and Griffin." There was no reference to my presence. Never at any point. I immersed myself in it on 2 separate occasions. As I meticulously examined each line, a flicker of hope ignited within me, urging me to believe that perhaps I had overlooked something significant. It was hard to believe that she had actually expressed gratitude to Merrick. That I, who had orchestrated, financed, and remained quiet, was more than merely a visitor. Yet, I was. With a silent resolve, I let the card slip from my fingers and into the depths of the trash. As the night deepened, I found myself at the kitchen table, a glass of water in hand, my gaze lost among the colorful fridge magnets that adorned the appliance. Merrick approached, resting against the counter with his arms crossed. "Are you all right?" I cast him a glance. With a heavy breath, he let out a sigh. "Kaylin, I understand this might not be what you want to hear, but perhaps it's time to reconsider the reasons you've been giving for their behavior." I remained silent. "Your contributions to their lives surpass what many would typically offer. You covered their mortgage payments. You are present for each birthday, every holiday, even in moments when they overlook your own special day. And they behave as if you're what? A neighbor who visits merely out of courtesy?" I prepared to speak in their favor. "Do they truly have good intentions?" I embarked on my journey. He arched an eyebrow, a silent question lingering in the air. "Is that the case?" I sealed my lips. The words resonated with emptiness even before they escaped my lips. What compels me to swiftly stand up for those who seem to overlook my presence so readily? I whispered softly. Merrick remained silent. He extended his hand and gently grasped my shoulder. Later, I found myself in bed, gazing up at the ceiling fan as it turned in slow, purposeful circles. As I drifted through my thoughts, my mind began to roam freely. It came apart. Threads weaving through years I had previously avoided examining in detail. The day I graduated from law school. After toiling through 3 jobs to earn my way, the moment I stepped onto that stage, my parents presented me with a check. $50. And a card that read, filled with pride. Adoration for my parents is boundless. After 2 years, Callista proudly walked across the stage, diploma in hand, having earned her communications degree from a state college. They presented her with a sparkling new Subaru, adorned with a massive bow, and celebrated with a gathering at the lake house. I had convinced myself that finances were limited during that time. Perhaps they had finally received a bonus or a tax refund during the year of her graduation. I had hoped to embrace that notion. But what if it were something entirely different? What if I were simply less desired? What if I was perpetually the backup, never the preferred choice? I turned onto my side and closed my eyes. Rest eluded me. On a Friday morning, I entered the office early, seeking refuge in the client files, hoping that immersing myself in work would stave off the encroaching spiral. It did not. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, I found myself seated opposite a small business owner, delving into the intricacies of a routine tax review. He found himself navigating the complexities of a partnership dissolution, casually inquiring, "If I've covered half the mortgage over the past 5 years, but the deed is solely in her name, will I receive anything back if we part ways?" I opened my eyes in surprise. My throat constricted. He lingered, pen poised in anticipation. "If it's not in your name," I said slowly, "legally, it gets complicated." My words echoed back to me, as if they were crafted solely for my ears. For 7 long years, I found myself writing checks, transferring funds, and managing the upkeep when Mom struggled to cope and Dad was searching for his next opportunity. At no point did I ever request to be included in the title. I had taken it for granted that they were aware, that the memories lingered, that they possessed a sense of decency. Yet, honorable individuals do not remove your name from a card, do not reach out to your partner and guest, and do not take what you have paid for and distribute it as if it were a mere door prize. Returning to my desk, I accessed the real estate records database. In just 5 minutes, the truth I had long suspected was finally validated. The residence had perpetually belonged to them, Ronald and Vera Rosamond. Without a cosigner, there will be no changes made. And just last week, the official transfer of the deed had taken place, marking a new chapter for Griffin and Callista Holloway. Documented, certified, conclusive. I remained still for what felt like an eternity, lost in a quiet void, neither shifting nor contemplating. In due course, I reached into my drawer, retrieved a post-it, and hastily jotted down a thought. I found myself outside the circle of the gift, for it was I who had covered the cost. That night, when the phone rang and my mother's name lit up the screen, a sense of foreboding washed over me. I already knew there would be no words of remorse waiting on the other end. After 2 rings, I finally decided to answer the phone. "Hi, darling," Mom exclaimed, her voice bright and cheerful, as though she hadn't just witnessed me vanish from her daughter's wedding in a state of shock. The passage of time has stretched endlessly. Callista and Griffin have returned from their enchanting journey to Bora Bora. This Saturday, an intimate dinner awaits, just the 6 of us gathered together. "Merrick and you should join us." Her voice was sweet and delicate, lacking any substance beneath its sugary surface. I paused for a moment. "Dinner," I stated with a sense of finality. "Absolutely, we'll prepare that delightful rosemary pot roast you adore. Shall we meet around 5? I find myself questioning the reason behind my agreement. Perhaps a fractured piece of my being still yearned for clarity, wishing they would acknowledge that they had crossed a line. This dinner was intended as a gesture of reconciliation, an opportunity for dialogue, a moment to recognize their actions. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware of the truth. Saturday arrived, draped in a gray chill that felt out of sync with the season's promise. Asheville was transitioning into the embrace of autumn. The leaves were still clinging to their summer hues, yet the breeze whispered of transformations on the horizon. Merrick and I traveled in quietude until we reached the turnoff. I gazed at the mailbox that felt like an old friend. The house appeared unchanged, yet somehow transformed entirely. In the front window, new curtains swayed gently, delicate white lace replacing the cheerful sunflower valances that once adorned the space, a subtle shift in the familiar scene. The doormat displayed the words, "The Holloways, Estar 2023. Callista's pink running shoes rested by the door, perfectly aligned next to Griffin's oversized sneakers. I found myself on the porch, gazing at the brass knocker that Mom and I had polished together each Thanksgiving during my childhood. "It feels as though this place has never truly been a part of my story," I whispered. The moment I stepped inside, the scent enveloped me. The pot roast was merely a backdrop, it was the flickering candle that truly set the scene. Callista's favorite is the soft embrace of vanilla cashmere. Mom would often fill the air with the warm scent of cinnamon apple, creating a cozy atmosphere in our home. The living room had undergone a transformation. The old recliner that belonged to my father is no longer here. A smooth, cream-hued sectional gracefully arched beneath the window. As we entered, the aroma of dinner filled the air, already laid out and waiting for us. My mom pressed her lips to my cheek, her gesture as if the world around us was perfectly fine. "You seem a bit worn out, dear. Are you putting in too many hours?" Callista sat with a bright smile, glowing in a white sweater that likely exceeded the cost of my monthly car payment. Griffin acknowledged me with a nod, as if we shared a long history together. Merrick and I settled into the last two available seats, one of which had once belonged to my father. I nudged a carrot across my plate, biding my time. It was a brief moment. "Well," Mom said, placing her fork down with care. "With Lily and Griffin settling into their own space, your father and I have been reflecting." My stomach nodded with anticipation. Father leaped into action. "We are eager to take up residence in your charming cottage." My thoughts came to a halt. "What is happening?" He continued with a relaxed demeanor, mentioning the quaint house you acquired in Fairview. "It suits us flawlessly. Serene, one level, conveniently located near our place of worship." "Are you considering making my home your new residence?" I inquired, striving to maintain a steady tone. "Well, it's not as if you use it all the time," Mom remarked, her smile a touch too radiant. "It remains idle for the majority of the weeks." Callista suggested, "You and Merrick could share a home, right?" Merrick's jaw tightened in a silent struggle. I gazed at them, my mother's eyes filled with hope, my father's nod brimming with anticipation, my sister's self-satisfied little smirk lingering in the air. A realization washed over me. They had not extended an invitation for dinner with the intent of finding closure or fostering reconciliation. This transcended the notion of family. This was centered around obtaining the subsequent creation I developed. As the bus rolled to a stop, I placed my fork gently on the table. "So, allow me to clarify this," I stated with a measured tone, composed and deliberate. "You relinquished the home for which I covered the mortgage for 7 long years. So, you think it's reasonable to step into the place that I truly own?" "Kaylin, please try to be a little kinder," Mom urged. "We shall not accept it. Merely existing in that space. You never even inquired. You made your choice, as you always do." "You're being overly theatrical," Dad murmured. "No," I insisted, my tone cutting through the air. "I am embracing the truth at last." Callista brought her fork down with a forceful clatter. "Jealousy has always been a part of you." Silence enveloped the room. "You always seemed uncomfortable when I received extra attention or support. You present yourself as virtuous, yet a sense of resentment has lingered since your college days. That is the reason for their greater affection towards me. I never imposed any guilt upon them for it." My breath was momentarily suspended. And in an instant, it appeared. Exposed to the elements. What I had always kept silent about, she shouted from across a table adorned with our mother's finest china. "They cherish you even more," I murmured gently. No one could refute it. Not even those individuals. Merrick's fingers brushed against mine as he reached beneath the table, a silent connection forming in the dim light. I rose to my feet. "If their affection for you runs deep, perhaps they can share a life alongside you." I leaned back in my chair, a moment of contemplation washing over me. Merrick trailed behind. No one intervened to halt our progress. As I closed the door behind me, a sense of relief washed over me, leaving no room for guilt. A sense of alertness washed over me. The silence enveloped us during the journey back that evening. Merrick refrained from pressing the issue. In the stillness of the car, the only sound that broke the quiet was the gentle hum of the heater as it came to life. The temperature had fallen into the 40s, bringing with it a chill that penetrated deeper than mere skin, reaching into the very essence of one's being. Upon entering my sanctuary, I let my purse rest on the side table and eased my feet out of their confines. My hands acted on instinct, arranging the pillows, opening the fridge merely to gaze inside. Yet within, all had transformed. A sense of relief lingered in the air, absent was the familiar guilt that often followed a family confrontation. This time, it's different. There exists an unusual sense of understanding. As if a long-lost piece had finally found its way home. In the days that followed, I immersed myself in my tasks. The office consumed me entirely. A series of client calls unfolds, accompanied by the meticulous organization of tax preparation files, all while navigating the intricate process of budget forecasting for a quaint bakery nestled in the heart of downtown. Focusing on the numbers of another felt like a refuge, a distraction from the swirling chaos of my own thoughts. On that fateful Friday, I decided to take a break from my usual routine. I sought a moment of respite before the onslaught of quarterlies began. As I prepared breakfast, I took a moment to wash the windows, allowing the stillness to linger in the air. Suddenly, my phone vibrated with a buzz. "A movement has been observed at your premises." My gaze was drawn to the notification. Brevard. The retreat by the sea. Moments later, a new buzz echoed through the air. A call, this time. An unfamiliar number appeared, yet I recognized its significance. "This is Dana, reaching out from Carolina Watchdog Security. Do you reside at 417 Orchard Trail? I exist." A motion alert was triggered. Two figures made their way inside, the key turning in the lock with a quiet click. Their names resonate as Ronald and Vera Rosamond. "Could you please verify the authorization?" My gaze was fixed on the ground beneath me. "Did they employ a key?" "Indeed, ma'am. The key was not intended for that use." "Would you like us to notify the local authorities?" "Indeed," I responded with a sense of tranquility. "I desire their removal." As I ended the call, I noticed Merrick standing in the doorway. What transpired? "They have entered the dwelling." "Is it the Brevard house?" He opened and closed his eyes slowly. "Once upon a time, there was a character named Kalen. A key was employed. As if they were meant to be there." After a brief interlude of 10 minutes, we found ourselves cruising along the highway. The leaves danced in a hazy swirl beyond the glass. Glistening in hues of gold and rust, they danced against the backdrop of the early October sky. My thoughts began to swirl and intertwine. Birthdays of yore were overlooked. Vows shattered. Callista had hurled her words like daggers just a week prior. "You seem to struggle with the concept of sharing." This was not a matter of sharing. It had never been that way. They believed they were merely receiving. They believed it belonged to them from the very start. We arrived just after the sun reached its zenith. The gravel crunched beneath the tires, a familiar sound as we drew closer to the porch. There they sat, my parents, positioned like uninvited guests next to a towering pile of plastic bins, a cardboard box marked linens, and a bag from Home Goods. My mother was enjoying a warm drink from her travel mug. My dad rose to his feet upon seeing us, as though this moment was a long-awaited reunion. "There you are," he remarked. "We anticipated your return." I emerged gradually. Strolled directly by him. A sheriff's car stood parked in close proximity. The deputy lingered, arms crossed, a silent sentinel in the unfolding scene. I informed him that they lacked the necessary permission to be present in this place. As she rose, the sound of my mother's mug striking the wood echoed sharply in the quiet room. "What are you up to?" In an instant, she lost her composure. "In light of all that we've sacrificed and provided for you, it's hard to understand how you could respond with such ingratitude." "Unappreciative," I echoed, nearly chuckling. "You relinquished my childhood home as if it were a mere giveaway. So, you believe you have a right to my vacation property?" My father took a step into the light. "This is merely a fleeting moment." "We thought, that's your issue," I remarked with a chill in my voice. "You never inquire. You make an assumption. You seize." Kaylin, my mom's voice pierced the air, taking on a sharper edge. We are your guardians. We nurtured you into who you are today. We stood by your side. What precisely did you endorse? I interjected. My 21st birthday dinner was overshadowed by Callista's volleyball game, a memory that lingers vividly. I recall settling the mortgage on your home when tax payments were overdue, and I recall receiving a $50 check for my law school graduation while you gifted her a car. Her expression flickered. That was an era unlike any other. Negative. The hour never varied. I continued to act as if it were not the case. The deputy prepared to speak, his throat clearing in the stillness of the room. Would you like to pursue legal action, ma'am? My father appeared deeply affected. Please refrain from this action. I gazed between them, the years accumulating like layers of sediment. The justifications. The preference shown. The newly framed control they referred to as family. I firmly replied, no. There are no charges, yet I desire their removal from the property. On this day. The deputy acknowledged with a nod. We shall guide them to the station for their confinement. Guidelines for resolving trespass disputes. My mother inhaled sharply. Are you really sending us to jail? Perhaps remaining in one place will allow for contemplation, I responded. As they settled into the back of the squad car, Merrick was busy loading their belongings into the trunk of our vehicle. We made our way directly to a nearby storage facility, where we secured a unit for the next 30 days by prepaying. They received more than what was warranted, yet my intentions were not rooted in malice. Completed at last. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we found ourselves making our way back home, the day's adventures still fresh in our minds. Silence enveloped the apartment. With a soft clatter, the keys fell onto the desk as I settled into the chair. Amidst a clutter of utility bills lay the deed to the Brevard house, quietly waiting to be discovered. I grasped it, letting my fingers glide over the seal. I had covered all the expenses, I whispered. A moment of stillness. All but peace. The night passed in a restless haze, devoid of sleep. Not quite. My body moved on autopilot, cleansing my face, slipping into pajamas, and curling up beside Merrick, while my mind raced uncontrollably, spinning like a wheel without any brakes. As I closed my eyes, the images of my parents' faces lingered in my mind, captured in that moment when the officers requested them to vacate my property. The sound of their car trunk closing echoed in my mind, accompanied by the rustle of their bags, while the silence that followed lingered like a fading wisp of smoke. Yet, a revelation awaited me. When you establish boundaries, certain individuals perceive it as a battle. 3 days later, the incessant vibration of my phone on the nightstand roused me from sleep. The morning sun struggled to break through the curtains, yet the glow from the screen cut through the dimness with a sharper intensity than any bright light. 17 calls that went unanswered. 14 messages left behind, each one a story waiting to be told. A multitude of texts, far beyond what I wished to tally. Connections emerged from cousins, aunts, and even a neighbor whose voice had faded from memory over the years. And then it came into view. A post shared by Vera on Facebook. What about her profile photo? A beautifully framed moment from the wedding featuring Callista. The caption conveyed a poignant sentiment. In our golden years, we find ourselves cast aside by our own daughter, treated as if we were criminals. Our every action was rooted in love for her. Underneath, 2 images await. One of my parents sat hunched over on the porch steps, a suitcase resting by their feet, evoking the image of someone abandoned and lost. A closer view reveals the officer's cruiser subtly positioned in the background. She had seized those moments before they were led away. Comments surged like a tide. Did she really send them away? What a lack of compassion. Today's youth seem to lack a certain depth. My son would never do such a thing. One relative remarked, "This is the outcome of marrying a man who seeks to keep you apart from others." She has lost her former self. I held back my tears. I chose not to respond. I sat there, phone in hand, allowing the words to strike me like small, piercing darts. It was then that the private messages arrived. Aunt Priscilla, your mother is heartbroken. She claims you won't even allow them to remain in the quaint little cottage. Isn't that the one you seldom reach for? A companion from my early years. I find myself pondering the changes in you, longing for the Kaelin I once knew, the one who cherished family above all else. Another individual. Do you really believe that a house holds more significance than your own parents? Regret. My fingers lingered above the keyboard, poised to unveil a myriad of truths. I might have declared, I financed that home. It was never a question posed to me, rather, it was a conclusion drawn without my input. It was within my grasp to include the mortgage statement, the title, and the receipts documenting every restless weekend I toiled away, all for the sake of that cabin. Yet, I refrained. I placed the phone face down and rose to my feet. My knees trembled, not from sorrow, but from the weight of every word I longed to unleash. Merrick found himself in the kitchen, deftly scrambling eggs. Upon my entrance, he lifted his gaze, swiftly interpreting the emotions etched on my face. You witnessed it, he remarked. I gave a slight nod. With a swift motion, he dried his hands on a towel before making his way over. You are not obligated to provide anyone with an explanation, unless it is your desire to do so. I found myself perched at the counter. It transcends the mere post. It's astonishing how many individuals accept it as truth, without ever seeking clarification. He extended his hand into the drawer next to the fridge, retrieved a slender manila folder, and set it down before me. Within the confines of the space, there lay an array of printouts, emails, screenshots, payment confirmations, tax records, each piece a fragment of a larger story. For years, I've held on to these, he remarked, should you ever find yourself needing to recall what is truly real. As I gazed upon my own signature sprawled across countless documents, a sense of reflection washed over me. All payments had been made by me. All the taxes had been paid by me. My name was the source of tranquility, even as they regarded it as mere decoration, destined to blend into the surroundings. As the afternoon sun began to dip, I made my way to the office. I felt the urge to escape, to inhale a scent that was free from the stench of treachery. As I strolled by the glass conference room, my gaze fell upon Emily, the new intern, receiving a reprimand from one of the senior partners. She remained rigid, her arms clasped behind her, absorbing each word without a flicker of her eyes. A weight pressed against my chest. There was a time when I was in that very position. Quiet. Flexible. Exercise caution to maintain stability. I toiled through holidays, bypassed farewells, and endured insults so piercing they embedded splinters in my dignity. In those days, I believed that silence embodied strength. As I observed Emily nod and express regret for something that was not her doing, my perspective shifted. Silence did not equate to strength. It was a fight for existence. And it confined you to a narrow existence. That evening, returning to the comfort of my home, I brewed a cup of tea and settled at the dining table. Merrick sat in the living room, immersed in grading student essays, his gaze lifting to meet mine every so often, filled with a calm and unwavering patience. As I lifted the lid of my laptop, a world of possibilities awaited me. Initially, I refrained from visiting Facebook. In the beginning, I opened Word, crafted my thoughts, erased them, and then crafted anew. Thus, I embarked on a new beginning. As the clock struck midnight, I found myself weaving together 3 paragraphs, then 6, and soon a dozen emerged from the depths of my thoughts. I shared the details, not with malice but with clarity. The years I dedicated to the mortgage, the resources I invested in the cabin, the moments I was advised to simply accept when Callista received more, became louder, and took precedence. I refrained from using any derogatory names. I chose not to respond in kind. The draft concluded with a single sentence. If you seek the complete truth, I shall reveal it. However, you must prepare yourself for what lies ahead. The cursor blinked steadily, drawing my gaze after that line. It remained still. I wasn't either. The laptop remained open for a moment longer. In the soft, muted light of the screen, I found myself captivated, my own words reflecting back at me in a silent dialogue. They were neither tainted by resentment nor sweetened with falsehood. The truth, presented with clarity, sincerity, and a sense of timing that has finally arrived. As dawn broke, the storm made its entrance, not with the chaotic fury of thunder and lightning, but with a subtle approach that knocked softly at first, then boldly forced its way in. My inbox overflowed with messages. Family, longtime companions, and even acquaintances from the distant past, all sharing their thoughts. "I had no idea you bought the house," one cousin wrote. "That transforms the entire landscape." Some of the more unpleasant remarks beneath Mom's viral post had disappeared, as if individuals were discreetly attempting to retract their statements now that evidence had come to light. As expected, Callista offered no apology. Mom offered no explanation. Even in quietude, there are stories to be told. In my family, the unspoken rule was clear: your worth didn't warrant a response. As I savored the warmth of my coffee, the email arrived, interrupting my moment of tranquility. A name that lingered in the recesses of my memory, faint and elusive. Once upon a time, there was a man named Gregory Bell. He once held the role of the family's estate lawyer. I opened it, bracing myself for a generic response, yet what I found was something heartfelt and tailored just for me. "Ms. Rosamond, I stumbled upon your Facebook post, and I feel compelled to share something important with you." A knot formed in my stomach. In 2016, the email went on, "Your parents began the process of transferring ownership of the family home into your name." The conclusion remained elusive. In 2018, the deed took a new turn, as it was reassigned to another beneficiary, your sister. At that moment, no legal notice was necessary, given that the property remained under the shared ownership of the parents. I found myself revisiting that paragraph no fewer than 5 times. At one time, they intended to hand it over to me. However, a shift occurred in their decision. Silently. In silence. I gazed at the wall for a moment, allowing the weight of that realization to settle within me. With a sense of anticipation, I opened a new browser tab and logged into the county records portal. It's merely an instinctive feeling. Yet, as I delved into the Brevard address, my vacation retreat, it revealed itself before me. An inquiry into the title search. Inspired by my mother's name. 2 weeks ago. They were examining the legal standing, perhaps gearing up for another attempt. The betrayal no longer pierced like a knife, it unfolded like a meticulously organized spreadsheet. A meticulously structured choice, laid out with precision. A carefully orchestrated scheme, relying on the belief that I would remain unchallenged in my thoughts. I rose from my seat, made my way across the apartment, and reached for the black accordion file tucked away in the hallway closet. The label bore the marks of wear, yet its details remained discernible. Home loan. From 2017 to 2024. Within lay a trove of years' worth of documentation. Documentation of loans and proof of transactions. Evidence of each transaction, every cent I shifted from my personal account to ensure we had a place to call home. Each dollar I believed I was dedicating to my family. One by one, I arranged them meticulously on the dining table. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, I meticulously scanned and arranged each item into neatly organized digital folders. Marked. Recorded with a timestamp. Inarguable. Afterward, I settled in front of my laptop and began crafting a second post. This time, there is no feeling involved. Only the essentials. Captured moments. Documents in PDF format. The calculations. I unveiled everything before me. The conditions of the mortgage. The recurring payments. The costs associated with home repairs. At the conclusion, I inscribed a single line. For years, I bore the weight of my silence. At this moment, I unveil the mathematics. I lingered above the post, my fingers motionless, my breath steady. Just as I was poised to make my selection, my phone vibrated with a sudden buzz. "Merrick, you may want to check out Callista's latest post." As I launched the app, my sister appeared before me. With my hair elegantly curled and makeup perfectly applied, I stand poised on the porch of my vacation house. The space of my porch, adorned in soft, flowing letters, "Home is where the heart is." Before I was fully aware, my fingers had already formed a tight fist. I refrained from scrolling. I gazed intently. There she stood, a figure poised in the midst of the unfolding scene. Callista, radiant in the gentle morning glow, cradling a familiar mug. The vessel that holds my warmth. The piece I had purchased from that quaint shop in Brevard, a hand-thrown pottery adorned with a blue glaze that evoked memories of the lake. She shared a moment of tranquility, reflecting on a serene weekend spent at the lake house. Deeply appreciative of the bonds that tie us together as a family. I continued my search. Yet another image captured. Callista and Vera sat together, laughter echoing as they swayed gently on the porch swing I had crafted with my own hands during that relentless summer, the sun scorching my skin and leaving blisters on my palms as I stained the wood. The backdrop revealed their true nature. Merrick had mounted the birdhouse on the cedar tree. Near the stairs, the wild mint we planted thrives, its fragrant leaves whispering stories of growth and resilience. The welcome mat I left unchanged after Mom deemed it too ordinary. It remained, as if I had never departed. I chose not to say anything. No message sent. No objects were thrown. I murmured softly, a quiet conversation with my own thoughts. Thus, we find ourselves in the throes of conflict. As the clock struck 9 in the morning. The following morning, I found myself once more seated opposite Gregory Bell, the estate lawyer. The scent of paper mingled with the sharpness of carpet cleaner filled his office. He extended an invitation for coffee. I chose to refuse. I pushed a manila envelope over the desk, its weight heavy with receipts, scanned documents, and mortgage summaries. He turned the pages, acknowledging the important details with a nod as he absorbed the content. "This is comprehensive," he remarked. "Should they make any further claims or attempts to enter, we have the option to seek injunctive relief." "I desire something greater," I declared, his brow lifting ever so slightly. "I am requesting a cease and desist letter." I contributed, my tone unvaried. "Enforceable by law." Precise wording. "To Vera and Callista, directly. Clarity is essential." He remained utterly still, his gaze unwavering. Completed. That evening, Merrick returned home, 2 grocery bags in hand and an expression I had come to understand, silent yet filled with urgency. He placed the bags on the ground, his voice steady as he began, "There's something you need to hear." He retrieved his phone, navigated through it with quick taps, and then passed it to me. The recording bears the date from 6 months past. That weekend came rushing back to me. He had ventured outside to reach out to her following an unusual voicemail regarding family arrangements. Her voice resonated throughout the space. "Kaylin has consistently taken on the role of the diligent worker. That is her part to play. Callista is worthy of solace. She has faced greater emotional challenges. You're aware of that." I stood my ground. Merrick lingered next to me, caught in a moment of hesitation, contemplating whether to break the silence. I returned the phone. "That will be our choice." The following morning, I settled in with my laptop. This time, there is no emotion. Only accuracy. The second post has been uploaded. Initially, there are images capturing bank transfers, organized chronologically by year. Subsequently, the PDFs containing the mortgage agreement. Subsequently, the title logs reveal the investigation into my vacation property. I concluded with the audio. Underneath, I inscribed, "This is not an act of vengeance. This is a moment of understanding. I refuse to be altered." I pressed the button to share my thoughts. In just a matter of hours, the responses began to pour in. Words of encouragement, connections, and kindness from those I had only just met. "You have no obligations to them," remarked one woman. "We appreciate you sharing your receipts," another commented. Countless individuals remained silent. "It is unnecessary for us to do so." Some attempted to stand by Vera and Callista, but their resolve wavered upon hearing the clip. I chose not to respond to anyone. I simply allowed it to remain undisturbed. The essence of truth resonates with a distinct intensity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Callista at last found her voice. She shared a screenshot of my post, accompanied by a caption. This was never meant to be shared with the world. However, if you seek the public's attention? Very well. Let us delve into the realm of law. Vera left her thoughts in the comments section just beneath it. She will come to wish she had made a different choice. As I shut my phone, a smile crept across my face. At that moment, I held the last crucial element in my grasp, while they remained blissfully unaware. The morning sun sliced through the air of my apartment, casting sharp shadows on the floor. As I lingered at the dining table, the lukewarm coffee in my cup offered little comfort, and I found myself in a state of anticipation. The moment arrived swiftly. At precisely 9:07 a.m., Gregory Bell sent me the scanned letter we had meticulously crafted together just 2 days prior. What should the subject line be? It has been successfully delivered. A courier and email had delivered the cease and desist notice. It approached Callista with a formal tone, referring to her as Ms. Callista Rosamond Wells, and delineated precise legal stipulations. All social media content related to the Brevard property must be removed without delay, all copies of the house key must be returned in full, and a clear warning must be issued concerning the fraudulent title inquiry recorded under my name. The final paragraph stated, should there be any additional efforts at misrepresentation or possession, the undersigned retains the right to seek damages and complete injunctive relief in accordance with state and federal law. Along with the letter came scanned PDFs, showcasing the effort made in the title search and revealing that Vera and Callista had accessed my mortgage files using outdated personal information. They attempted to initiate a transfer, stealthily and unlawfully, right beneath my awareness. I reclined and murmured to the ceiling, you ought to have realized the truth. By noon, the family group chat erupted with activity. Aunt Darlene's message was the beginning of it all. Could this be accurate? She included a screenshot of my post, accompanied by a screenshot of the letter that had been leaked by someone. I didn't inquire about the identity. Next, Uncle Robert added his voice to the conversation. Kaylin took the necessary steps she needed to take. She deserves recognition for asserting her own voice. In that moment, Callista departed from the conversation. Vera replied with a voice memo. Her voice trembled as she spoke. I undertook this journey for the sake of our family, to uphold our image, and to ensure that you girls remain connected. When we appear to be facing challenges, others tend to speculate. When Callista appears to be falling short, she descends into a downward spiral. I truly believed we were acting in the best interest of all. I chose not to respond. Allow them to dwell in the quiet they had consistently offered me. At precisely 5:41 p.m., the phone rang, and it was Callista on the other end. The name illuminated on my phone held my gaze. I answered the call. Do you truly wish to put our family name on display in a courtroom? She responded without hesitation. It exists already, I replied. At long last, I've stepped into the room. She hesitated, allowing me to catch the strain in her breath. So, Kaylin, you're prioritizing property over people? No, I replied in a measured and serene manner. I am embracing tranquility instead of deceit. Yet another moment of stillness. Then silence enveloped the line. I chose not to return the call. The following day at the office, we gathered for a team lunch to discuss our new intern project. We gathered in the lounge conference room. Inexpensive chairs, disposable plates, and the warmth of someone's homemade brownies, their foil wrapping glistening with moisture. It was simple, unadorned, yet it held a certain charm. As the intern presented me with a napkin, a small name tag affixed to its surface, I found myself momentarily paralyzed. Kaylin. It was written correctly. The script was meticulously crafted. Unrushed, without doubt. I gazed at it, lingering in the moment more than was perhaps necessary. At last, my name was spelled correctly. forever remembered. Not overlooked. Just witnessed. With a quiet grace, I folded the napkin and tucked it away in my purse, the silence enveloping the moment. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Gregory sent another email. He provided a brief overview. Dara and Ronald have embarked on a new chapter in their lives, settling into a cozy retirement community apartment in Hendersonville. A one-bedroom available on a month-to-month lease. There was no communication from them. There is no obstacle to overcome. Only silent acquiescence. What about Callista? Quiet. Her social feeds lay bare, devoid of any traces. No weekend getaways. There are no mugs available. No lakeside photo shoots. I didn't need an audience to feel victorious. In this instance, the absence of sound became the ultimate prize. That night, the last voicemail arrived. As I settled into the couch, my eyes caught sight of something on the screen. A solitary missed call lingered in the silence. One message. It was from Vera. Kaylin, we need to talk. We know we messed up. Kindly. Simply engage with us. I failed to preserve it. I chose not to replay it. It was removed. In that moment, I understood, I had established the first genuine boundary I had ever maintained with them. The voicemail had vanished. Removed. Not out of a desire to erase the past, but because I had chosen to redefine my relationship with those memories. In the weeks that followed, life unfolded quietly, lacking any grand or theatrical moments. It hushed, and for the first time, that sensation felt like a prize. Upon returning to my place of employment, I resumed my duties. Most nights, I found myself in the kitchen, crafting dinner alongside Merrick. One evening, a chicken stir-fry came to life. Next comes the lentil soup. We immersed ourselves in documentaries about national parks, engaging in spirited debates about the possibility of embarking on a camping adventure. Indeed. Myself. No thanks. Our laughter echoed more frequently than it had in the past. Not due to an instant transformation into perfection, but because the atmosphere had finally become transparent. On a brisk Saturday morning, I set out on a drive to Brevard. The vacation home, the very one I had battled for, the one that had nearly slipped through my fingers, was now occupied by a wandering writer named June. She welcomed me on the porch with a smile that spoke volumes without uttering a word. Within the confines of the room, a transformation had taken place. Scattered throughout the room were remnants of her presence, books resting on the coffee table, a vintage typewriter positioned by the window, but the air still carried a subtle scent of lemon oil and cedar, just as I preferred. As I guided her through the arrangement of the drawers in the kitchen, she came to a halt. She gently unfolded one of the napkins, her voice soft as she spoke. Are they made of linen? Crafted by hand? Indeed, I gave a nod. A present bestowed upon them. Once, I turned my back on them. Now they remain. With a gentle smile, she traced her fingers along the intricate stitching. It seems as though a life was truly experienced in this space. I nodded once more, with a gentler touch this time. Indeed, they did. A week later, an email from Callista appeared in my inbox. Topic: setting the record straight. It was a series of rigid statements cloaked in politeness, lacking any specific mention of misdeeds, merely a nebulous expression of sorrow regarding the course of events. A sentiment expressing the desire to maintain harmony. She never uttered an apology. I chose not to respond. The following day, a bouquet of lilies graced my office, their presence a soft whisper of beauty amidst the routine. There is no card available. I glanced at our receptionist and motioned toward the flowers. I dismissed them without a moment's hesitation. They are yours to hold on to. She blinked, her eyes momentarily closing as if to gather her thoughts. Do you truly believe that? They possess an exquisite beauty. They do not belong to me to hold on to. They belong to another's showcase. She accepted them, and I made my way back to my desk. On a rainy Thursday, I found myself sharing a meal with Lorraine, one of my longest-standing clients. A retired professor, she possessed a sharp tongue and even sharper eyes that seemed to pierce through the mundane. For a decade, she had walked the path of widowhood, yet her gold band remained on her finger, a steadfast shield against the world. Over coffee, she said it out of nowhere. "Your work has always been done with a certain quiet grace, Kaylin, and I have taken notice. You always stood your ground, refusing to be diminished." It landed heavier than I expected, not because it was a compliment, but because it came from someone who didn't flatter easily. I smiled, feeling a lump in my throat that I hadn't noticed before. I expressed my gratitude, saying thank you. Its significance goes beyond what you can imagine. A few days later, I wandered past a storefront in Asheville, where the glass windows glistened with the gentle touch of early spring drizzle, and I glimpsed my own reflection. Not an antagonist. Not a casualty. Only I exist in this moment. Hair tousled by the breeze. Eyes less tired than they used to be. A woman who had ceased to exist for the purpose of selection. A woman who embraced her own journey. Within the confines of my mind, the sound resonated distinctly. They labeled me as ungrateful, yet what they truly implied was, "You cease to fulfill all our demands." That was not an act of treachery. That was limits. In the bustling environment of the office, I took on the role of guiding a new junior hire, Anna, who had just stepped out of the halls of grad school. Reserved yet competent, often too eager to express regret. One afternoon, I strolled by her desk and noticed her expression change as a partner claimed the accolades for her efforts. I paused, pivoted to face the past. "Hey," I expressed with a blend of firmness and warmth. "I came across the report. Your efforts were commendable. Next time, be sure to present it at the meeting yourself." Her eyes grew large with uncertainty, yet I offered a smile. "Believe me, it's important to voice your thoughts sooner rather than later. It preserves time." That evening, upon returning to my apartment, I pulled open the bottom drawer of the hall table. Within lay a quaint wooden box I had discovered at a flea market long ago, adorned with intricate swirls and a brass latch that occasionally resisted opening. I opened it and set the old house key inside, the very key they once brandished like a trophy, the same one they attempted to use to pass through my walls. With a strip of masking tape, I marked the box, giving it a clear identity. Experiences I endured. For the very first time in my life, I chose to keep the key to myself. I held on to it.